So what we do on Let Us Explain is dive deep on something that we can't stop thinking about for other people who can't stop thinking about that thing too. That means we'll be talking about anything and everything that sometimes includes spoilers. But before we jump into the spoiler zone, we want to talk a little bit more generally about the platform. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, the proud owner of a Samurai Plus, it's Arturo Zurita.
How are you guys doing? I remember catching this one back at TIFF, and it even won the Midnight Award, which is a huge category. So I'm excited to talk about this one because now it's out on Netflix, and I think everyone has time on their hands to be able to catch this one on Netflix.
Exactly. Yeah, we think this one might surprise some people and maybe become a little bit of a word-of-mouth hit. We're definitely going to try and do our part in that. Also joining us to do that, es obvio, the producer intern, Fernando.
So glad to be here, guys. Yeah, it was got to catch this a little bit early, and excited to talk about it here today.
Yeah, because the platform is a Spanish blend of science fiction and horror. It's been newly released worldwide on Netflix. It's set in a large tower-style prison. Inmates are fed by a platform that gradually descends from the top tower until no food remains for the inmates on the bottom floors. And if you're sensing an allegory for the class system or distribution of wealth, well, then you're onto something.
You got it.
The movie premiered, as Art mentioned, at the 2019 Toronto Film Festival, where it won People's Choice Award for Midnight Madness. Art, what did you think of the platform?
So having seen it in September of 2019 and rewatching it in the spring of 2020, completely different movie. We've talked about this in the past, how movies can have completely different connotations. It's happened several times. We'll catch a movie at a festival, 4 months will pass by. That is a completely different, there's a completely different connotation and meaning to the movie because of world events that have happened. That is this movie right here, especially when everyone's cooped up at home. I do really enjoy a lot of the, because I think there's two ways to put it. The themes, the metaphors of the movie, and then also what the main guy is going through. I don't know if you wanted to break down what the platform itself is, what the rules are.
Well, I mean, I think we can get into some of the specifics a little bit later in our spoiler section, but there is this sort of idea of you have this limited amount of time with the food, and you share a cell or a floor with another cellmate.
Originally, because I know this is a Spanish film, it was called The Pit, if I'm not mistaken. So it's interesting. Yeah, it was the hole, really. So it's kind of interesting to see it flip, that instead of focusing on the hole, the American version focuses on the void, the actual thing that's missing in there. But no, I enjoyed the movie. There's just aspects of it, which we'll get into the spoilers, that I feel could have been flourished a little bit more. And my second watch, some of those were kind of I noticed them a second time around, but having a Q&A with the director, it felt like a lot of the things were open into interpretation, which isn't a bad thing, but may have people overthinking the movie possibly.
Yeah, this is from director Galder Gaztelu Urrutia, and it's definitely a really interesting vision from him. I think the film has been received pretty well in Spain. I think it picked up some awards. But Fernando, how squeamish did the platform make you in comparison to other horror movies? Because it's not exactly advertising itself as a gory horror movie, I think.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting as much goriness just from seeing the poster from it and the concept of it, but it definitely goes there. It's definitely hard R, and I also agree with Art on a lot of what he said. I think a lot of the themes and class dynamics they try to portray can get maybe overthought by some people, and I think, at least for my end, the thing I enjoyed most about it was just from an entertainment value. I thought it was a really fun movie, and I enjoyed watching it. And luckily, I do think from the main character's perspective, at least for me, I was rooting for him. I was hoping he was getting a good number. So on that end, I think the movie succeeded, because I definitely think if you don't have a character that you're rooting for, or a good main character, it kind of it wouldn't be as effective as it was.
Yeah, and there's a certain way in which the platform just kind of throws you into the action. You just wake up with Goreng, and he's already in the tower prison. The platform is about to descend. It doesn't give you his journey into the tower until a little bit later in the film. So in that way, I feel like it just launches you right into the action in a very riveting way, and because you're just as lost as he is, you're able to kind of get this connection with him. He's a fun character, and I think he kind of shares our morals throughout, whereas you come up against all these other people who are more used to life inside of this prison, and their morals have become all skewed. What were you guys surprised by this movie's twists and turns? Because it is kind of a twisty movie.
Yeah, I think what makes it interesting is that, like you said, you're following along with him. So all the information that he's getting is from the first guy who he's with, Trimagasi, I think is what his name was.
Yeah.
Mr. Ovio. Can you really trust the guy who decided his only thing to bring was going to be the Samurai Plus? Like, I don't know. But he's the first person who's telling him everything that he needs to know. And he thinks, okay, well, according to him, there's this many levels. And as he meets more people, he goes, okay, it's this. There's never really definitive answers that he's getting. So he needs to, kind of get into the action of what he needs to do. So I found that part intriguing because every time you think it's going to get boring, because it really is, movies like Cube do this where everyone's just inside one place, but it continues to expand and expand and expand. One of my favorite movies that is very similar to a bottle location is Exam. This is kind of similar to that, where as soon as it's about to get boring between two people, somebody else will come in from the platform, or you'll have another thing, or somebody else will bring a completely different viewpoint to the morality of what's going on here, or the bigger scope of things. And I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you guys bought into this world because it does take a certain level of buy-in to some kind of dystopic society that would allow this, and also we find out that Goreng has elected to enter the tower rather than being imprisoned there, which I still don't quite understand the logic behind making that decision, but
so here's
it didn't keep me from enjoying the ride.
Yeah. Do you have any interpretations of that? Because I will put it to you there, even when we get into spoilers, this is a movie where the directors vehemently do not want to answer anything. They'll be like, I don't know. We just, that's what we got up from Tiff. My interpretation of that was that that's what allows this system, like you said, it's in the future. As much as you want to nitpick it, the platform itself, the technology for something to levitate like that, all right, we're playing in different rules. I figured that that's the way that they're able to bypass things. Because a big critique of this is where are the rich in this metaphor? And I think they're in the movie. They're just not playing by those rules. Right. I'll get a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know how deep that metaphor goes. To me, I kind of feel it works in a very simplistic, are you taking your fair share kind of question. But I don't know if I buy that it goes much deeper than that in the movie. At least I don't personally buy it. But just in terms of the pace of the action and the horror, I was with this movie. It keeps the pace moving. It cuts, and all of a sudden a month has passed, and it didn't feel that jarring. I was along for the ride. So I do think this is a really fun kind of vision, even though it's got the kind of Saw level body horror that might leave people looking away from the screen.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pacing is really good, especially because as the movie starts, like you said, it throws you right in there, and he gets paired up with the Trimigasi character, the old man, and I was like, okay, so is this gonna be his his supporting character throughout the whole thing? But the movie does a really interesting thing where it changes, and then even by the third act, a completely new character gets introduced, but you still like him, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I think the pacing was pretty good.
Okay, so I think we should open this thing up to platform spoilers. So if you can't handle the truth or haven't seen the movie, now is your chance to get out and watch a spoiler-free edition of the Intercut podcast, including our recently posted podcast about Hollywood's reaction to coronavirus. But you can stick with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about the platform, get into some specifics. Things become a lot clearer after Goreng wakes up in his third month on the 33rd floor with Imogiri. I believe her name is, she explains to him that there's enough food on the platform for everybody in the tower, but only if everyone takes their fair share, and she begins trying to ration food and convince the floors below to ration as well. Art, did the way that the movie spelled out its morals detract from the experience for you in any way?
Well, that's what I was saying. You know, a lot of people have been calling this like the vertical Snowpiercer. And while it is that, it's the same thing that you were saying. There's certain aspects of the story where, again, in a second viewing, I may argue some things for the director that he didn't want to argue for himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's like the more you think about it, the less it's going to make sense, and you realize it's really just a metaphor. But if it's a tale, it's a tale. And I think that she plays a very crucial part. She reminded me a lot of a Sorry to Bother You type character. Which I think most of us enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I love
Boots
that movie.
Riley's movie from Sundance, and where she was almost kind of the sellout character. I used to work for them. I didn't know it was like this. And then she opted to be in there. So there's almost this idea that there's an illusion. You know, even our main character decided to go into this system, into this platform, into this pit, because he wanted to, one, quit smoking, read a book, and then the third one being that he was able to get a degree.
Yeah.
What we learned with his previous partner was that he was there because he had accidentally murdered someone, but he didn't really care because it was someone who didn't need to be in that country to begin with, and thus he brings his knife to defend himself. And he has the ideology that anyone below him is beneath him, and everyone above him is above him. Very crazy way of thinking. I would not recommend it. But obviously, Goreng has a completely different viewpoint, and where he definitely is supposed to be the audience who's trying to band the people up on top and the people from the bottom. And I think he realizes with every act that there's a certain thing that he needs to do, and it's very sorry to bother you. He needs to be the one to make it to the top, and from that system, go down and try to form a platform where people are actually listening to each other to be able to create a system that is able to feed everybody. To not beat so over the head on a metaphor, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I was gonna say I do think though, like with the pacing of the movie though, it definitely puts him in a difficult position at times, especially after he goes through his second month and he gets placed in a very far level. I think it was 171 or something.
Yeah,
with,
so just to cut in, I think the movie does a really interesting thing in that it starts with him on the, I believe, 70-something floor, where he is kind of, I would say he's like, if you want to extend the analogy of the movie, he's a little bit of middle class. He does get some stuff. He's going to be okay, but he's not exactly like comfortable, like happy or whatever you want to have it. And then in that shift, when he goes to the 170-something floor,
171,
he's definitely in the lower class, and he's not. There's nothing that trickles down to that point.
Yeah,
Yep.
especially after. This man was the heaviest sleeper. He was like Trimagasi wrapped him up, and he was gonna eat him. Like he was like, bro, like I'm sorry, but after a couple weeks, I'm just gonna lose it. But luckily, he survives that. But after going through that experience, he's kind of like disillusioned, and he doesn't really care anymore. So once he gets paired with the lady, she's kind of more the one that's trying to like help people or like reason with people.
She is,
yeah, and he's like, don't even bother, like just they're not going to do anything.
One of the things that becomes kind of interesting as the platform goes along is his sort of induction into that world, where it takes him going through some real traumatic experiences for him to kind of adopt some of that prison mindset. And as you mentioned, while Imoguri on the 33rd floor does sort of try to take the charitable opinion and try to extend that thinking outward, it's combined with his more like hard-nosed, realistic view of what life is like in the tower, where they're finally able to get some stuff done. And I do feel like if you wanted to extend that thinking to the analogy, you could, but I'm not so sure if that's where, to me, the metaphor holds up. Like that in order to enforce, some kind of class solidarity, you need violence or something. Like I don't know what the message is there. To me, it's just that central metaphor makes for a really fun situation to explore the dynamics of. And that's where the movie works to me, is just they've created a plot that is very, very dynamic and it propels you through the story.
Yeah. And like I think I agree with you. He's broken down. If the first person who he sees is this crazy old man who ties him up and is telling him he's going to eat it, then he's got to eat that old man.
Yeah.
And then he's got to eat the woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time he gets this third partner who is he's a religious fanatic, that's how he starts off. And they have this plan to go down. And like you said, at that point, he turns into murdering. So it's almost like, like you said, putting him in the situation, this pressure cooker, is what turns a person who was more in the middle to someone who's got to go to extremes.
Right.
And I was talking to Fernando about this beforehand because like I always like searching up the names to see what they mean. Now this is a Spanish film, but the translation to his name is to fry, and technically that's what happens at the end when he decides to go down to what is known as the pit, and he's practically as he speaks to the ghost or his conscience really that takes the form of the old man. It's almost like his retribution, because one of the big goals that they have at the end is to send the food, the panna cotta back up, the cake.
So what did you guys think about that whole, like, one of the later twists in the film, or later stages of the film, is when he does get to, was it the 6th floor? 4th floor? 6th floor?
Yeah, on the 6th.
Yeah, he's on the 6th floor when he starts doing the thing of going down.
Yeah, they ultimately decide that in order to get a message across, that they're going to go all the way down on the tower and enforce that people take their fair share. What did you think about that moment in the film?
So they automatically assume everyone is violent, and that's because it is a system that is created from people who want to come in and play with the rules, and then people who are legitimate criminals.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you where, again, it's a situation type movie. It's not trying to give you any, and I think that's why in the Q&As he never wanted to answer anything, because he's like, look, this is just what happens in a situation like this when people are put into this. I like the idea that at the end it ends up being the girl. Or the little the kid that they send up, because that's to them as a message. The entire time, he was told, the person who screened me and now is my cellmate, she thought there was 200 floors, and now I'm on floor 333 because if someone dies on a platform, it doesn't even stop. It just continues to go all the way down. So when he decides to send the girl instead of because they feed her the cake instead, I think that's him realizing that it's not the people who can make this work. The entire system is broken. And I think that's where on my second viewing, I really saw the message that he was trying to give, because at first, like you said, it very much seems like it's indicting the people who are just trying to survive and saying that they're bad and there's people pooping on each other, and after a month they turn extremely evil, and it's almost making you feel like humankind, like there's no humanity, but they're put in a scenario that's like built to fail. And when they even told you there couldn't be kids in there. And I don't even know your theories on the kids, because there is another character we have yet to mention who fabricates looking for a kid. There's the idea that someone could have had this child in there, and instead of pulling her out, they didn't. So I think that the ending really showcases that he realizes, I came in here voluntarily, and voluntarily into the system of trying to get a degree. Who, maybe you get into debt or whatever it is.
Did you have any interpretation of that whole, like, she has a child, she doesn't have a child, there's no children in here, and there ultimately was a child in there back and forth? Because I didn't.
What do you think?
I feel it's more of a thing of like they're just collateral. I think, like, when I was watching it, the character of Imoguri, where she was like, yeah, she works for this corporation or whatever, and she says, oh, there's only 240 or whatever. Like, to me, that was like an example that even the people that work for these corporations, like, don't get the whole picture, like, she's only fed half of the information too, so she's also like in the dark for a lot of things that are going on in the world. So I think the fact that she's like, yeah, no one under 16 is allowed to come in here, I think that's also part of it, where she doesn't know, and she doesn't know. She's just putting people in there as her job. And I think that the kid being in there is just like a part of the system that some people aren't even aware of, that get affected by it. Yeah. And the fact that that little girl is always at the bottom floor, right? Like, she's never moved. Like,
she's on 333.
Yeah,
is where they find her, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, I would interpret it that way, because she was down there by herself. But then again, like, how has she survived? Like,
there you go. So again, perfect example of where the movie kind of gets like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Because when you get so gory, you're also getting very detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which causes people to want to know, all right, well then how would someone survive here? And exactly, then you get to something where it wants to be a metaphor. It's kind of like us. I want to be a metaphor, unless I want to be a little bit of a thriller, which kind of takes away from the metaphor. Wait, no, let's go back to the metaphor type thing. So do you think it's her daughter, and they just wanted to carry on the story of making her feel crazy, misinformation?
I interpreted it as she, like, quote unquote, adopted her when she saw her. But
That's good.
Maybe, yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
I also don't know how ultimately relevant. I'm not so sure. I'm confused by that aspect of the movie, if I'm being completely honest. Fernando, I wanted to go back to your reaction to being pooped on. Was that your most disgusting point of the movie? There was a lot of disgusting moments.
Yeah, there was. I mean, even from the start, once like the platform first gets up there, like, and the old man goes to town on like the leftovers, that was disgusting as hell to watch. But definitely that moment was a mix of disgust, but also like utter like.
Who does that?
Yeah, like, and again, that goes to show like I forgot his name. But the guy with the rope, and he's like begging these people to help him. Like, this is as close as he's gotten to the top and the best chance that he has. And they're like thinking it over. They're like kind of playing with him in a sense. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll help you. And then she like poops on his face. Like,
yeah, you knew something was coming, but
yeah,
I don't know if
I thought they were gonna
assumed
like
it to be that.
I thought they were gonna like let go of the rope and have him fall to his death.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was very humiliating and disgusting as hell, but also kind of funny. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm also with you on the disgustingness of that initial food.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, I know there's certain movie magic in the poop scene or in the removing of like the calf muscle. You know, but like the eating of gross food, it just puts me there a little too viscerally, and I don't like
That's the one that did it for you? Not the cannibalism we can work with.
Yeah.
Boy, come on. Some manners at the table, please. At the platform.
Well, the food is all like picked over, and the way they like are stomping on the food
they like
and stuff
step
later
over everything. It's like
it's just not a movie that you should probably be eating dinner during. Is the least I would say,
for sure.
Really good production design though for that, and how they created everything. I don't know what the budget on it was, but you know, for such a simple outline, which is supposed to be that. But the flashbacks, I think, really help, because imagine just being in these like concrete walls would have been boring if you didn't have the flashes to them making the food, the flashes to how he got screened to be in there and such. The guy yelling at somebody because it's not perfect.
And to like further expand on the idea of how well paced the movie is, it's also a film that doesn't overstay its welcome. I thought it was interesting that when we do finally get to the ending, that it doesn't show you the ramification or even the fruition of their plan. It just shows you like, okay, this is the decision we're making, and we'll see what happens from here. It's a little bit ambiguous, I guess, in that way.
Leaves it to you.
But all those elements were things that I think worked in the movie's favor for me, just as like a fun but viscerally compelling story. You know, it's a movie that you're going to feel, whether or not you particularly enjoy those feelings and the disgust you're getting from it.
It definitely a
Fernando,
depressing one.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, just that it's depressing. That's it.
Fernando suggested this question before we started, but what would be the one thing you would want to bring into the tower with you if you were imprisoned? This is, of course, because Greg Goreng brings his copy of Don Quixote, and everybody has something with them. Imoguri makes the really bad decision of bringing a dog, and a dog that looks like a sausage as well. So you guess you can know where that's headed. Fernando, do you have an answer to this?
It was because I was thinking it over, and I was kind of thinking like maybe a weapon is like a pretty obvious safe choice, to protect yourself. I mean, the rope was a kind of a good idea. So like these two people, as they were going down, brought like kiddie pool to like entertain themselves, I guess. But like I think I guess a book, because like you can't like really like take a TV because what are you gonna watch? You can't take a phone because
Animal Crossing.
yeah, you can't because you only get one item. I don't know how lenient they are. If you can like take a journal, can you also take a pencil? Like I don't know. So I guess
a vending machine.
Yeah, so I guess a book is like pretty good. I don't know what book I'd pick, but I definitely think something that could last you a while.
The Bible.
The Bible, maybe. Yeah.
The holy one, the holy version, Holy Bible.
Mm-hmm. How about you guys?
Y'all are being way too tame about this.
What are you getting? A flamethrower?
Some kind of weapon, a gun,
Yeah.
maybe?
Oh, yeah, it's got to be a gun. I mean, it's got to be a knife. You can't do a gun because you'd run out of ammunition. You don't know how long you're going to be there for.
Yeah.
I do like his idea of it being a book because mine would have probably been a notepad, but I'd rather have a book with some empty pages in the back. So now I got a twofer and right in between. I'd bring another person. I'd bring another person then.
Oh, there you go.
Endless conversations. One of us may starve. One of us may starve by the end of it.
You'd force Alina into that hellscape with you?
Hey,
taking my wife.
Going into it, I didn't know what it was. They had nice offices at, they were offering stuff outside. That's the whole point, is that this is run by the rich who are trying to put you in a system. They don't care.
Yeah.
So they dupe you into it, thinking you're going to get a college degree. And then you get a panna cotta that you got to send up.
Any final thoughts on the platform?
Yeah, so I was watching it with our friends Andres that went to Sundance with us, and I'm gonna give him all the credit on this. And when he said this, it hit too close to home. But as Goreng was going to different levels, he was like, it's almost like picking your waitlist number at Sundance. You never know what you're gonna get. One day, one movie you might get fucking
very
10,
similar,
and then another number you get 312, and you're like, God damn it.
At 112 at the Eccles, you can still get in. 112 on the platform, you are not eating. You're not getting food.
Yeah, so that was just funny, but no, overall I enjoyed it. The way you take the metaphors, I think, is up to you. Obviously, people could read into it more, but I think it's just entertaining, and I think it's more like a. Definitely, horror fans are gonna love it. It's gonna be more like a maybe cult-ish type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I just feel like it's not that deep, but I really like it. I don't want to get into a prolonged philosophical discussion about it, but I enjoyed the experience and I thought it was really well made. I'm definitely curious to see what else this director's got coming.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. There's a couple of holes in there that the story, you wish it was just a little bit more fleshed out. But like you said, something can touch on themes, but people think that something with metaphors or themes is also telling you what you should believe. And it's not. Something can graze it, and it's not going to give you an answer. And I think that's what this does in showing
it's
you.
It's a thought experiment.
Exactly. It's showing you just a scenario and how this particular character who you're following, in order to find redemption, ends up going to the pits, and it's left into interpretation. That sometimes in order to make a difference, it's a quote that he actually says, change doesn't come that fast. It's phrased a little bit differently, but that's what he realizes, and leaves it up to you. Yeah, what kind of change? Yes, it's not spontaneous. So what kind of change will you start making?
Yeah. All right, so I think that's all for this edition of Let Us Explain on Intercut. But you can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at @ZShevich. And check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplexshow. Fernando, where can people find more from you?
People can find me on Twitter at border_logic. And you guys can also follow my Letterboxd, which is Fernando_films.
Art?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Let Me Explain or The A to Z Show. And you can find me every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
Yes, you can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever your podcatcher is. I like Overcast. Then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio feed, but to the video feed as well at youtube.com/intercutpod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of the Intercut Podcast every Friday, as well as these Let Us Explains, which we're going to drop sporadically. And if there's any movies that you're looking for us to maybe go a little bit deeper on, let us know in the comments or emailing us at intercutpod@gmail.com. You can also leave us a comment, like the video, and consider heading over to iTunes to give us a 5-star review. 5-star reviews are the best way to help spread the word about the show and get our podcast in more people's feeds. So please help us out with that. Like our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter pages, all of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from Fernando, from me, from all of our guests here on Intercut. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, the panna cotta is the message.